to a sound that froze me in my bed. Knock, knock, knock. It was outside my window last night, she said. I froze. You mean the figure? Yes. I woke up and there it was. I leaned closer. It repeated a single phrase. I can see you. The figure was inside the room, pressed against the window from the inside, facing me, not behind me, inside the mirror. Just the faintest shift of darkness, like a shadow ducking out of view. Around 2:40 a.m, I woke up to the soft sound of footsteps upstairs. Hey, hello and welcome back to ASMRk. I hope you're doing well as always. Today's video is another compilation of scary stories from Reddit. There is 6 in total today, so let's get straight to the first one. I hope you enjoy. I live in a quiet neighbourhood on the edge of a mid-sized city. Nothing special. A mix of old brick duplexes and small houses. A corner store that always smells like burnt coffee. And a bus stop no one uses after dark. I'd been living there about a year when I first noticed him. I was walking home after a late shift at the diner. It was around 1:30 a.m. The streets were empty, except for the soft glow of the yellow streetlights. Under one of those streetlights, about a block from my house, a man was standing perfectly still. He was tall, thin, dressed in a dark jacket with a hood up. His face was just shadow. He didn't move when I walked past. He didn't say a word. I thought maybe he was waiting for a ride or the bus, even though the buses stopped running hours ago. I tried not to think about it. I just went home, locked the front door, and told myself this city always had its share of weirdos. The second time I saw him, it was 3 nights later. I was coming home a bit earlier than usual. It was around midnight, and there he was. Same street light, same spot. But as I approached, I realised he was facing my direction this time. Not moving, not speaking. I walked faster, heart pounding. I didn't want to look like I was scared, but every instinct told me not to slow down. I turned the corner toward my street, and that's when I heard the footsteps. Slow, deliberate, behind me. I spun around. He wasn't under the streetlight anymore. I didn't see him at all. I sprinted the last half block to my house, unlocked the door with shaking hands, and slammed it shut behind me. I went to the window, carefully pulling the curtain back. There he was, standing under the same streetlight again. He hadn't chased me. He hadn't followed me to my door. It was like he was letting me know that if he wanted to, he could. 2 weeks went by without me seeing him again. I started to convince myself that I'd imagined it, that maybe he was just some guy hanging around for a ride. Then, one night at around 3 a.m, I woke to a sound that froze me in my bed. Knock, knock, knock. It was my bedroom window. The curtains were drawn, but the streetlight outside bled in just enough to silhouette the faint outline of a head. I didn't move, didn't breathe. until it slowly tilted, like he was listening for me. And then, after what felt like forever, the shadow disappeared. I stayed awake until the sun rose. When I finally worked up the courage to open the curtains, there was nothing there. No footprints in the dirt below the window. No sign anyone had been there at all. Around 3 weeks later, I decided to move out. The night before I left, I took one last walk to the corner store for a drink. My nerves were mostly settled by then, and I told myself it was over. But when I turned onto the block with the streetlight, he was there. Same spot, same posture. I stopped in the middle of the street, and my chest tightened. And for the first time, he moved. He slowly raised his arm and waved. Not friendly, not mocking, just acknowledging me, like he wanted me to know he'd always remember which house was mine. Sometimes, when I'm in a new neighbourhood late at night, I find myself checking the streetlights just to make sure he isn't there, waiting. I grew up in a quiet rural town where nothing much ever happened. My best friend Lily and I would walk home from school together every day. Most kids took the main road, but we had a shortcut, an old dirt path that cut straight through Hollis Field, a stretch of tall, dried grass and an abandoned irrigation canal. One autumn evening, the sky was bleeding orange as the sun dipped behind the trees. Lily and I were halfway across the field when we both noticed it at the same time. Something was standing near the canal. From that distance, it looked like a person, very still, half hidden in the grass. "Do you see that?" Lily whispered. "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's probably a farmer." But we both knew no one had farmed Hollis Field in years. We walked faster, hearts pounding, and when I finally dared to glance back, it was gone. Over the next week, we convinced ourselves it had been a trick of the light. Then Friday came. Lily's older brother, Evan, offered to walk us home from the football game. He was the kind of guy that never believed in ghost stories, so of course we decided to take the shortcut through Hollis Field again. Halfway across, Evan stopped and squinted into the tall grass. "Hey," he said, "there's someone out there." My stomach sank. Lily grabbed my arm. Standing in the exact same spot as before was the figure. Closer this time. Its head seemed wrong, like it was too narrow, too long. It didn't move, didn't breathe. Evan shouted, "Hey, you okay out there?" The figure tilted, almost like it had heard him, and then vanished into the grass without a sound. Evan swore and started toward the spot, but Lily screamed at him not to. We ran all the way home, adrenaline buzzing in our veins. That night, I dreamed of the figure standing at the foot of my bed, perfectly still, just like in the field. 2 days later, Lily called me in a panic. "It was outside my window last night," she said. I froze. "You mean the figure?" "Yes." I woke up and there it was, standing in the yard, looking up at my window. I blinked and it was gone. We didn't know what to do. Tell her parents, call the police. What would we even say? stayed over at Lily's house. We barely slept, peeking through her curtains every hour. Around 2:30 a.m, we heard something move in the backyard. Not footsteps exactly, more like grass swaying. Evan went outside with a flashlight, cursing under his breath. The beam of light scanned the yard and froze on the edge of the tree line. The figure was there, closer than ever. This time, its face was visible, but it wasn't a face I can describe. It was like a smear of pale light where a face should be. When Evan shouted, the figure melted back into the darkness of the trees. The next day, Lily's family packed up and moved in with her grandparents 2 towns over. She refused to come back. I didn't see it again for almost a year. But one winter night, I was driving home from a late shift. My headlights swept across the edges of Hollis Field, the tall grass brittle and grey in the cold. And there it was, standing in the field, facing the road this time. I drove faster than I ever have in my life. I don't take the road anymore, and every time I see an open field at night, I feel like it's waiting somewhere, just out of sight, because it follows people home. I live out in the country, where the nights get so quiet, you can hear the wind pass through the treetops. A few months ago, I was up late working on some paperwork when my TV, an old flat screen I rarely used, clicked on by itself. It was tuned to Channel 7, which normally just displayed a weather loop for the country. But that night it was static. I thought there was maybe a storm somewhere, but then, through the fuzz, a voice whispered, so faint, I almost thought I imagined it. I leaned closer. It repeated a single phrase. I can see you. I yanked the plug from the wall and sat in the dark for ages, trying to convince myself I was just overtired. 2 nights later, I woke up to the faint hum of static. My TV was on again. This time, the image was different. Instead of static, I saw a live feed, or at least it looked live. It showed a dirt road, lined with trees, illuminated only by the camera's night vision. I muted the TV and crept closer. I could hear footsteps crunching in the leaves, but no one was in the frame. Then, suddenly, the camera swiveled like someone was holding it, and for a split second, I saw my own driveway. Obviously, I didn't sleep after that. The next evening, I left the TV unplugged and tried to pretend life was normal. Around midnight, a faint tapping echoed from my front porch. I peeked through the blinds. There was a small, portable TV sitting on the porch, turned on. Its screen flickered between static and a close-up of my front door, as if filmed just from inches away. I didn't open the door. I called the sheriff, but by the time the deputy arrived, the TV was gone. He said there were no footprints, not even in the wet dirt. My head has been all over the place since, and I haven't slept properly. 2 weeks ago, I woke up to my phone buzzing. It was a notification from the weather app, Channel 7's feed. Against my better judgment, I opened it. The video played in portrait mode. It showed me, asleep in my bed, my chest rising and falling. Then the screen went black, and a whisper came through my speaker. We'll be back on air soon. I'd never lived in the countryside before. When my aunt passed away, she left me a small, 2-story farmhouse on the edge of Grayford, a dying little town tucked behind miles of old, creaking woods. I'd just gone through a divorce and needed a fresh start. A house in the middle of nowhere seemed peaceful. The first few nights were calm, no traffic, no sirens, just the wind and the occasional hoot of an owl. But by the 4th night, I noticed something odd. From my bedroom window, I could see the old guest house about 50 yards away. It had one intact window, and that night, a light was on inside. I didn't even realise that place had power. The next morning, I went to check. The guest house was locked up tight, filled with dust and abandoned furniture. There wasn't even a working light bulb in the ceiling. I tried to convince myself that I'd just imagined it. That night, the light returned, brighter this time. I grabbed my binoculars from the moving box in the kitchen. Through the glass, I saw a figure, not moving or walking. They were just standing at the window, staring at my house. I froze at the sight, and my hands shook so hard, I nearly dropped the binoculars. The figure looked human, but blurred somehow, like a reflection in water. I shut the curtains and spent the night on the floor, too scared to sleep in my own bed. A few nights later is when the knocking began. It wasn't at the door, it was on the windows. First the kitchen, then the living room, then my bedroom upstairs. Every time I grabbed my flashlight and shone it outside, there was nothing there. Just the black fields and the trees swaying in the wind. But when I checked the guest house, the figure was closer to the glass now, as if pressed against it. Its hands were visible, white and narrow, fingers splayed wide on the glass. I ended up calling the sheriff. He arrived after around 20 minutes, searched the property, and said he didn't find anything. Probably just raccoons or the wind, he said. In that way, small town cops say things when they don't want to deal with them. But the next morning, I checked the guest house myself. The inside of the window was covered with handprints. I lasted about another week. Every night, the figure seemed to move closer, though I never saw it actually walk. The guest house window was its starting point, then the side of my barn, then the trees near the porch. The final night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of glass rattling. I turned my head toward my bedroom window, and I nearly passed out. The figure was inside the room, pressed against the window from the inside, facing me. Its face was a mess of pale smudges, its eyes dark holes. I didn't scream, I couldn't. I grabbed my keys and ran barefoot to my truck, driving to the only motel in Grayford. When I returned the next afternoon with the sheriff, the house was silent. No footprints, no broken glass, nothing to suggest anything had been there. But in the dust on the bedroom floor, leading from the window to the door, were 2 long streaks, as if something had crawled away after watching me leave. When my company transferred to Cedar Heights, I thought I'd lucked out. I found a small 2-bedroom house for cheap, a quiet suburban street where the streetlights always buzzed faintly and the neighbours barely looked up from their lawns. I was living alone for the first time, and the house had that faint smell of old plaster and dust that clung to your clothes. The bathroom, though, something about it fell off from the start. The mirror above the sink was larger than it should have been, stretching almost the entire wall. I remember thinking, who needs to see themselves that much? The first night I brushed my teeth and caught movement in the reflection, not behind me, inside the mirror, just the faintest shift of darkness, like a shadow ducking out of view. I whipped around, nothing, just my shower curtain and the hum of the bathroom fan. I told myself I was just tired. It started with little things. In the mornings, I'd find the bathroom door cracked open, even though I'd left it closed. The shower curtain would be slightly pulled, like someone had brushed against it. One morning, I noticed a smudge on the mirror, about the height of a face pressed into the glass. When I wiped it away, it left a clear outline of a forehead and a nose. I stopped turning off the bathroom light at night. Then the sounds started, barely audible at first, like breathing, soft and uneven, whenever I stood at the sink. One night, I leaned in close to the mirror to inspect a shaving cup. My breath fogged the glass, and through that fog, another breath fogged back, just slightly out of sync with mine. By the second week, my reflection wasn't behaving. It was subtle, too subtle for anyone to believe me if I said it out loud. I'd raise my toothbrush, and my reflection's hand would lag just a moment behind. I blinked, and it didn't. I stopped using the bathroom at night, choosing the whole bath downstairs instead. But around 2:17 a.m, always the same time, I'd hear it, a faint tap, tap, tap from upstairs. The first night, I thought it was just a branch in the wind. The second, maybe pipes. The third night, I forced myself to look. The bathroom light was on, glowing faintly through a crack in the door. When I opened it, the mirror was wet, as if someone had pressed a dripping face against it and slid down it slowly. Water pooled at the tiles beneath it. I don't own a single leaky pipe. I tried covering the mirror with a sheet. The next morning, it was folded neatly on the floor, and my reflection was smiling at me, even though my own face was pale and blank. I slept on the couch for 2 nights straight. On the third night, the sound came again, this time closer. Not a tap, it was a knock, this time from inside the mirror. I couldn't move, my heart rattled in my chest like a caged bird. Then I saw it, my reflection, step back. I didn't move, but the man in the mirror took a step away, revealing the dark space behind him. Something moved in that darkness, crawling toward the glass. I ran out of the house barefoot, leaving my keys, wallet, and phone inside. I slept in my car that night, and by morning, I drove to a motel, and I never went back. A month later, I got the notice that the house had been broken into. The police said they found no signs of forced entry, just every mirror in the house shattered from the inside. I sold it for half of what I paid, and I never told the new owner why. When I was 29, I bought my first home. I wasn't looking for anything big, just a small 2-story house in a quiet town in Pennsylvania, away from the noise of city life. The listing said it had been on the market for over a year. The price was suspiciously low, but I told myself it was just the market. When I first stepped inside, I noticed the silence. Not the normal silence of an empty house, but the kind that rings in your ears, like the walls are listening. The living room still smelled faintly of old wood and damp earth, and there was a single, untouched chair in the corner that the previous owner had left behind. The realtor mentioned casually, "Some buyers say the place feels empty." That night, I slept on an air mattress in the living room. The heater clicked faintly, and the wind pressed against the siding. Around 2:40 a.m, I woke up to the soft sound of footsteps upstairs. I froze. The house was locked. No one had a key but me. I waited, heart thundering, staring at the dark outline of the staircase. The footsteps didn't continue, but I swore I could feel weight in the ceiling, like someone was standing perfectly still above me. I stayed awake until the sun rose. The next day, I explored the upstairs fully. There were 3 bedrooms, 1 master, 2 small. The last room on the right immediately felt wrong. The air was cooler by a few degrees, and the walls were bare, like no one had ever lived there. I kept the door closed at first, thinking it would just be storage, but I noticed something the second night. When I walked past that door, I could hear something faint, like a distant hum or whisper. I leaned in, holding my breath. It wasn't a voice exactly, more like a low vibration, as if the room itself was holding a sound I couldn't quite catch. That night, I dreamed of the room. In the dream, I stood in the doorway, and the floor inside was missing, just a dark pit that went down forever. Something was breathing in the blackness, slow, patient. I woke up with my heart racing and realised I'd left the bedroom door open. The door to the hollow room was open too. I started keeping the room locked with an old skeleton key I found in the kitchen drawer. Even then, strange things began to happen. My keys ended up on the floor outside the door one morning. My phone alarm, which I always left by my bed, was found face down inside the hall. And every night, around 2:30, 3 a.m, I'd wake up with the unmistakable sense that someone was standing in the doorway of my room. I bought a cheap baby monitor and set it in the hall just to calm my nerves. The first night, nothing. The second night, static. The third night, I still can't explain. At 2:47 a.m, the monitor crackled and picked up a faint knocking. But it wasn't on wood. It was hollow, like someone knocking from inside a wall. When I played the audio back in the morning, I realised the knocking was coming from the room I'd locked. I didn't check it that day. I didn't check it for 3 more days. On the 4th night, I woke up to the sound of the skeleton key turning on its own. I bolted upright in bed. From the hall, I could hear the softest creak as the hollow room door slowly opened. I didn't move, I just listened. The floorboards in the hall shifted as if under a weight, one at a time, until the sound stopped right at my bedroom door. My phone was on my chest. I didn't dare move to call anyone. Minutes passed like hours, and then, just when I thought I'd imagined it, something breathed in my ear. But I was alone in the room. I stayed frozen until dawn. The next day, I packed a bag and left. I've been gone for 2 weeks now. Yesterday, a neighbour sent me a photo. The upstairs window, the one belonging to the hollow room, was open, and in the photo, there was a face in the glass. Not mine, not anyone's I know, just waiting. So that is the last story for today. I hope you enjoyed them all. Please do let me know in the comments what your favourite type of scary story is. I have said this before. My favourite is a creepy encounter or a story about a creepy encounter. So yeah, let me know in the comments, and I will speak or be reading some stories for you again soon. Take care,